Hey guys, so you know who I am. This is... Hi, my name's Claire. Claire is a friend of mine, and there's a reason why Claire is in this video. Claire, why are you in this video?
I am going to talk about my diagnosis for autism.
Exactly, right. So Claire has a different story to mine. So I was late diagnosed. How old was you when you were diagnosed?
I was diagnosed at around 5 years old.
So what prompted that diagnosis? Like who noticed like the signs and symptoms there?
Well, it was more my mum had a inkling that something was wrong because of I wasn't developing like normal children, but like a friend of hers that had children the same age as me said that it probably would be a bit slow. But when I got to school and started in reception, she asked the head teacher to keep an eye on me and sort of monitor me in class. And it wasn't even a week when he called my parents back in and said, look, something is wrong, you need to go to the doctors. And that's how the ball got started rolling. And obviously went to my family doctor referred us to the assessment clinic at the hospital, and gave a load of different tasks as you would do with young children. Can't really remember what they were because 5 years old, you don't really remember.
Oh, so you don't remember a lot about the actual process?
No, I don't. But my parents have told me little bits. But after the initial assessment, they did turn around and say, well, she is on the spectrum and she's borderline autistic.
Yeah. So is that what their official diagnosis was actually borderline autistic?
Yeah, borderline autistic.
Yeah. So which is obviously something that they actually don't do anymore, do they?
No.
You're autistic or you're not, there's no sort of borderline anymore. So it just goes to kind of show how the diagnosis process has changed over the years.
Definitely, yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously you're late 20s now, so you're looking over 20 years ago compared to my diagnosis being this year.
Yeah.
And obviously the difference between yours was as a child, mine was as an adult. So you were saying you had to do what was it, something to do with blocks and
probably
things like that?
sort of blocks, sort of just different blocks, and putting them in the correct places and stuff, and seeing how quickly I could do it.
Yeah, so it was more of kind of physical assessments in a way, whereas mine was all just talking. There was nothing like that, which obviously, being an adult, I'm probably going to know what blocks to put in where. And
of course, yeah.
So you're looking for different things as autism develops, over the years. Were you always aware that you were autistic, or was it something your parents told you later in life?
I think obviously as a younger child I didn't really notice too much, but as I got older I started sort of realising that I wasn't like the other kids. So obviously I asked my parents and stuff, and obviously they said, well, you've got a learning disability, you're not going to be as quick to learn as other kids would be in your class.
Yeah. So having a diagnosis at a young age, do you think that has been a positive on your life, or do you think it was actually had more of a negative effect, having that kind of label of autism on you?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, when you're in school and being the only person, that is different, and that has a teaching assistant with you every lesson. Children tend to say, well, that's the weird kid.
It almost singles you out as being different from everyone else, and it puts that negative connotation on different.
Definitely, yeah.
We were talking earlier, wasn't we, as well, about the fact of, I wonder if there were some children that thought, well, you're getting special treatment, you're getting extra help, and there being an element of jealousy there as well.
Yeah.
Why can't I get that special treatment? Why can't I get that extra help? What makes you so special? At least, from your point of view, disregarding everybody else, at least you were getting that help that you needed in school. So I suppose that at least is a positive thing.
Oh, definitely. It's helped me in all my school career. So having that support, especially from my parents and also from the schools, having that sort of system in place where I had a teaching assistant in every lesson, went to a curriculum support sort of group twice a week, having my annual reviews every year, and sort of to see how things, and I've just become on leaps and bounds, and it's made me the person that I am today. I mean, I've got a job and I'm more independent than I used to be. My parents are no longer worried of them thinking what's going to happen to me when they are both gone. So like I can live more of an independent life, and I'm just as normal as the next person that comes through.
Do you think if you hadn't had that diagnosis young and you hadn't had that help in school, that would have really set you back in life?
Oh, definitely. I think definitely, yeah.
Do you think like it would have been a struggle to kind of like hold down a job and relationships and all the things people take for granted?
I don't think I was able to hold down a job at all, or even have forms of relationships such as friendships and a partner. I think I'd find those really difficult, and also like I'd probably just be, stuck.
So tell me a bit about like what secondary school was like, because obviously when you get into secondary school you're more aware of yourself. How did knowing that you was autistic affect you with those sorts of things in secondary school?
I never had an interest in boys in the whole of school, and especially in secondary school, never really. Well, I had like a few boys that would joke and stuff, but that was just merely to bullying and stuff, but I never took any really notice. And hormones, that did play a part sometimes in sort of like how I concentrated and stuff. I mean, I used to not being able to concentrate in primary school and stuff. I used to sort of zone out from lessons, and obviously I'd have the TA just like point me and say, no, you can't concentrate. Concentration was my biggest flaw of being autistic, because I couldn't, because there was all the noise and everything and all different things going on. It was a sensory overload, like you said, and it just made it a lot more difficult to get on with the task that I was set. But when I got into secondary school, that slowly started getting better. My concentrate, I used to be able to, I still can do at this, like now, is to zone out. So zone out what's happening in the background and just get on with what I needed to do. So I think in a way it started getting a lot more improved. Hormones, obviously sometimes with hormones and everything, it just flies out the window.
Definitely. But and at least because you're more aware, you develop these skills, don't you? Like you say, of being able to kind of like forget the background noise and concentrate on the work you're doing, which is harder as a young kid, because you're distracted more easily, whereas you can control it a bit more and that. But what was secondary school like in general for you? What was like the level of help you got and things like that?
I got obviously the same as I did in primary school, where I got a TA in every lesson. Every lesson up until year 9, and then obviously up until year 9 I had the Christmas support, where you go in and it helps you more with your English and your reading, because obviously my reading and spelling level was really low. So they gave me that support and say, right, they set tasks for you every week, saying like build up your vocabulary, sort of learn these spellings of these words, maybe read some more books, like non-fiction, newspaper, maybe like sort of find things to do. Up until year 9, that's when things, the Christmas support pulled back, saying, well, we want you to sort of be able to cope on your own. And then obviously with TAs in the lessons, they knocked that down from having 8 hours a week to 4. So I'd have a few in some lessons and others just be on my own.
So is that because they thought you didn't need the amount of support anymore, or do you think it was more they just didn't have the funding to provide those services?
I think it was more because I was going into end of school and into higher education. I think because if I kept depending on that help, I would suffer in the long run from the end of school, and obviously if I went to college or even in the outside world, they wanted me to just be able to cope.
Oh, so they wanted to get you used to that independent life early. That's quite good, that, because usually a lot of people lose their support because it's more actually to do with the politics of everything, and there isn't the funding and stuff like that. So it's good that their reason for pulling back was actually they're thinking about you and your well-being more than actually their own.
Definitely, yeah. They wanted me to be able to cope on my own and able to do things for myself and able to think for myself. So, because obviously I had a problem with being able to think, because I'd always just turn to the TA and just say, I need help, I don't know what to do, I need this doing and that. but it was more just sort of to say, well, you're going to be leaving school in a few years, you need to be able to cope on your own.
Yeah. At least the help that you were given was beneficial, because I'm guessing you got GCSEs and stuff like that.
I did pretty well in GCSEs,
Oh,
actually.
that's
I mean, what made me most proud was actually going into the examination room on my own and actually doing the test by myself, which is a really big step, because usually I'd be taken out of the room during the test and do it in a much quieter room, so I'd have no distractions. I'd have the TA there, but they wouldn't give me any of the answers. They'd just be there just to read the question. But doing that on my own, that was a big, massive step. That really
we know as autistic people that going into a new situation is, even now as adults, is something we'll avoid or will cause a lot of anxiety. So be able to do that as a child, the fact you were able to do that on your own, is huge, isn't it?
It was a huge deal, definitely a huge deal. It was just mind blowing. So I literally thought, I'm sitting in here on my own. I've come this far. You know, I felt so giddy and proud. So,
and it sets you up with that confidence that then you can take into other things.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, it just makes you feel good about yourself, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, there was just one time where that made me so proud of myself and feel good, where I was like, oh my god.
We was talking earlier about a lot to do with how autism affects us differently and stuff like that. And we both get selective mutism.
Yeah.
How has your selective mutism affected you throughout your life?
Well, as a toddler, and also towards when I got diagnosed, I would just not speak at all. I wouldn't speak at all. I would just point to things that I wanted, to my mum. I was like, I want this, but I wouldn't exactly verbally say it. And I think that was quite a struggle on my parents, because they're thinking she's not speaking. And obviously I had to have speech therapy. Once I had my diagnosis, they put me onto a speech therapist, so I went there probably about once a week. Just have
It wasn't something you just grew out of. You had to have some therapy.
I had to have some therapy.
So it wasn't that you couldn't speak, it's just that you wasn't, and the therapy just sort of coaxed it out of you, so that you would speak rather than just live in your own head.
Oh, definitely, yeah, because most of it was all just living inside my own head. I would just sit there and just rip paper, basically on the living room floor, and not speak or even communicate with anyone in my family. So obviously I had to have therapy to help me to coax out. And now, from what my mum says, shut up!
Never shuts up. Now we go to the pub, and this girl does not stop talking. Can't get a word in edgeways, people. Let me tell you that for sure. Now you've got a sister as well. Are you the eldest?
I'm the eldest, yeah.
So your parents didn't have anything to compare to. You were their first child, and what they would have had the preconceptions of what should have been happening, or what they would have been told by caregivers, and that wasn't happening. Whereas with me, I'm the second of two, so they had my brother first. So even though there were signs with me, it wasn't that, oh well, she's autistic. With me, it was just she's just a bit weird as a kid. That is true. You can ask my mum. I was a weird kid. Don't worry about it. I'm not offended. I take it as a badge of honour, people. Don't worry about it.
Same with me though, isn't it? So I just come from a crazy family, badge of honour.
Yeah, exactly. I don't stand out as weird in my family because we're all weird. So
Same with us as well. Yeah, same with our family. The women in the family are just completely nuts.
So how has, now that you're sort of in your late 20s and stuff like that, and you've lived with the knowledge of being autistic your whole life, and having to learn to change and adapt around a world that isn't really built for autistic people, do you find being autistic more positive or a negative in adult life?
I think it's just because I'm just happy the way I am. I used to be so ashamed of being autistic in school because of all the bullying and all the being an outcast and stuff, and not being able to join in with groups because people were like, well, we don't want you in our group. I used to find it as a really, really negative thing, but now I don't care anymore.
But that's because it's their negativity going on to you. They're trying to shame you, aren't they? Which is, can be a very hard thing to deal with at school. what brought you out of that sort of like negative feeling and made you become sort of more actually being autistic as a positive thing because it makes me unique?
I think it's going to college, because I went into a department in college which is that kind of dealt with autistic and people who have a learning disability, because that was the only place I could go in with the grades that I got from GCSE. And I just met so many awesome people who I am now still friends with, and it just made me feel more better about myself, because I had people who understood how I felt and they wanted to spend time with me and actually wanted to be friends with me, and that was just, you know, a light at the end of the tunnel, really.
So instead of being sort of like trapped in secondary school with negative people who you can't get away from because they're in your classes and they're on the playground, to then being in a situation where actually you're not trapped with negative people, you sort of sort out the positive people, and plus everybody at college, you're a little bit more mature, aren't you?
Yeah.
So people have a maturer view of these things, so you surround yourself with positive people, and it's brought you into this life. How have you found the dating world? Because obviously you're single now.
Yes, at the moment still single, yeah.
But you've had relationships. How did you navigate sort of telling the other person that you are autistic and how it affects you? And is there people that you've dated or been in relationships that you haven't told?
Well, during sort of the time where I began dating, back in 2016, that was when I was sort of just like, I really want to try it out. Some of them obviously didn't last long, so I didn't really say anything about it, because but when I got into a relationship with my first boyfriend, I think it was about maybe a week into starting to date, like to go out, I did tell him, saying that I am autistic, and obviously I wanted to tell him because he really did like me, but like...
So at that point you trusted him enough with this information and thought that it...
Yeah, I got to know him a little bit before we started dating, so he kind of knew from the offset what I was like, how I act, sort of thing.
What was his response to it? How did he react? What did he say?
To be honest, he just said, like, he just looked at me and thought, well, I like you for you. So
it didn't really make a difference.
To be honest, he didn't really say anything
so he didn't
negative or positive about it.
He didn't really
said,
so he didn't really communicate with you whether it affected him in any way, negative or positive or not.
No, but I know towards the end of the relationship, he found it a little bit of a irritating, because of how sometimes I would repeat myself and stuff, and towards the end of the relationship it became a bit of a negative.
But then it's like, that's not your issue, that's his issue.
Pretty much, yeah.
It didn't bother him all that time, but then at the end of the relationship he's decided he now wants to find something irritating that he was fine with before, so that's his lack of patience, isn't it, rather than...
He didn't have much patience, I would tell you that now.
And at the end of the day the relationship ended, so, you know...
And then obviously I got with my other second relationship with a guy. I told him literally straight away. On the first date we had, I told him straight away, and he was just the same like as my first boyfriend. He didn't really have much of a problem with it. He was completely fine with it, so that made me feel a little bit more calmer and a bit more comfortable, because I was so panicky and worried, thinking I really need to tell him, but I don't know how his reaction will be, because it is quite scary when you're autistic and you go into the dating world and you think, well, what are people going to say?
Yeah, because you don't know what their level of knowledge about autistic people is.
Yeah.
You know, and how they view autistic people, and whether they've had a lot of exposure to autistic people. So you never know how they're going to react. And you know, I've felt the same way. I'm sure there's a lot of people that felt the same way when you tell this person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, like we dated for a few months, but that wasn't because of me.
Yeah, it wasn't anything to actually do with you being an autistic person.
No, it wasn't.
His issues.
His issues more than that. But like, I'm starting to get to know someone now, and he already knows I've told him everything, and he knows, and he completely understands it. You know, he's not like any of the others. Seems to just take that under his wing and basically said, I like you for you. I'm not bothered. I don't really care. That just makes you unique.
I don't know what you people who are watching this think, but sounds like a keeper. Just saying. Hey, Charlie. So when it comes to dating, I have tried both ways. I've dated people that I already knew that were friends, and I have also tried the online dating world. Now, I know you've tried a bit of online dating as well.
Oh, I've done online dating a lot.
Yeah. What have you found to be the easiest way to meet people? Do you prefer being set up by somebody that you already know, or do you prefer meeting people online?
For the majority of the people that I've met mostly online, but that can both have positive and negative. Dating apps are not really for me. Sometimes they can work, because I've had that proof from most of my friends who have dated online, and it has worked. And some of them I've tried both, like a friend of a friend, and then obviously online dating. So I think either one is fine. It just depends on the person and how you click.
Yeah. But with the sort of social anxieties that surround autism, do you find that initial kind of talking to somebody easier online than actually in person? Or does it just make meeting them for the first time, more of a nervous situation?
I think talking online is easier because you're not face to face, and it's just texting, so you're just looking at a phone. But like you said, it does make it a lot more nervous when you do meet for the first time. And I know from experience that I always had a little panic before going on a date. I would have to have a drink before, not too much, but a little drink. I don't drink that much.
Just a bit of Dutch courage, just a little bit of Dutch courage. Not saying get wrecked before a date.
Oh no!
Just a little bit of Dutch courage sometimes, as long as it's over the legal age, can be a good thing.
Yeah, it can be a good thing before you go out. And obviously what I do a lot of breathing exercises. So when I'm meeting someone new, if on the bus or something, I'll do a little bit of breathing exercises, and then I'll just be like, right, I'm calm, I can actually walk in.
That's a good way to cope, actually, because I find it hard to do things, to remember to do things like breathing exercises, so I tend to just panic. So that's good advice, actually, to just, if you were feeling like that, you've got a bit of time while you're on the way to the date, have some deep breaths, and it'll help calm you down.
Or anything else that you find comfortable, sort of just to make yourself calm, and then you can just go in and meet that person. And sometimes it'll go really, really well and you click, and sometimes you just be thinking, why am I here?
So I think that's it for our kind of informal interview. Do you have any kind of last parting words for our lovely viewers out there?
Well, I'd like to sort of give a parting word saying that being autistic, you shouldn't be ashamed of it. I mean, I used to feel for years, especially with people around school, but now I just don't. I'm not bothered, because that just makes me, and obviously I have loads of friends who love me for who I am, and I'm very grateful to have people like that in my life. So
you just have to find your people. If you haven't found them yet, they are out there, and you will find your people, the people in your life that are positive and they help build you up, and those are true friends. And my friend Claire and my friend Laura are true friends, and all three of us are true friends to each other.
Definitely.
And I think both of us being autistic as well works really well for our friends.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
The three of us together, we're quite eccentric, and we have such a laugh together, don't we?
Yeah.
And we just fit into each other's lives really, really well. So I think, that's some good words. So thanks, Claire, for being here and joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been so much fun. If you do want to see Claire in another video, feel free to comment below. But for now, you'll see, unfortunately, you just stuck with me, and you'll see me in the next video. So until then, I'll see you later, guys. Bye. You'll have to get him to watch it for his little things, and he'll be sat there going, I gotta mention it on YouTube video.